Part 2 of how her husband married another woman to humiliate her, but the daughter he rejected came back for revenge. If you are seeing this story for the first time, please check the comment section for the part 1 to properly get the full understanding of the story. Now the restoration. The man who once threw a mother and child into the ring came back 5 years later to ask for the keys to the gate. Before we continue, don't forget to like this post, subscribe to my channel, share with your friends, and share your thoughts about this story. Let's continue. It was 6:14 inches the morning at the Teniola Center for Girls in Surulere. The compound that once hosted a wedding to humiliate Bolanle now smelled of chalk dust and fresh bread from the kitchen. 147 girls in navy uniforms lined up for assembly, reciting the words Teniola had written on the wall. I have a voice, I have a right, I have a future. Teniola stood on the veranda watching them, a clipboard in her hand, her hair pulled back, no wig, no robe. She was 29 and tired in a good way. Bolanle was inside the workshop, teaching 3 widows how to cut a straight line on Ankara. Her hands shook sometimes now, but her eyes were sharp. She coughed often from the years of generator fumes in Mushin, but she refused to stop working. She told Teniola every night, work is my medicine. That morning the security man did not show up. The gateman's chair was empty. At 6:30, a knock came at the gate. King David stood there. He was not the 12-year-old boy who was expelled for fighting teachers. He was 22, tall, thin, with a scar above his left eyebrow and a backpack that looked empty. He did not call her sister. He said, "Good morning, auntie. I am looking for work. I can fix computers. I can clean classes. I heard you help boys like me." Teniola stared at the face that looked too much like her father's when he was young. This was the son Femi had married another woman to get the heir. The boy Ronke once said would inherit everything. He had spent 2 years in a correctional center in Ibadan for stealing a phone to pay for his mother's hospital bill. Ronke had left him there and moved to Ghana with a new man. Teniola wanted to say no. Her chest tightened with the memory of her mother being called worthless while this boy was called king. But she saw his hands shaking. She saw the shame in his eyes. She remembered what Mr. Akin told her years ago. Law is about evidence and patience. She said, "Come back tomorrow at 7. We will try you for 1 week." He nodded and left before the girls saw him. At noon, another knock came. This time it was slower, heavier. Femi Adegoke stood at the gate with a small Ghana must-go bag, wearing a faded polo shirt and slippers. He was 57 now, his hair grey, his shoulders bent from prison work. He had served his 2 years and paid part of the restitution by selling the last piece of land in his village. He did not look at Teniola. He looked at Bolanle, who had come out when she heard the voice. He knelt on the same spot where he once told them to leave. He said, "Bolanle, I have nowhere to go. I am not asking to come back as your husband. I am asking for work. I can watch the gate at night." The girls at assembly turned to watch. The teachers froze. Bolanle walked to the gate slowly, her hand on her chest because her heart was beating fast. She looked at the man who had destroyed her life, and then at the school she had built from that destruction. She said, "You can sleep in the security post. You will be paid like everyone else. You will greet every girl with respect. If you cannot, leave." Femi wept and touched his forehead to the ground. Teniola watched her mother give mercy to the man who never gave it to her, and she understood for the first time that strength was not only winning in court. That peace lasted 3 weeks. On a Tuesday, a white envelope with a government seal arrived. It was a notice of revocation of title from the Lagos State Lands Bureau, signed by a councilman named Chief Okoro. It claimed the Surulere property was still under investigation as proceeds of crime and must be surrendered for public use. A shopping mall developer was listed as the preferred bidder. Teniola read it twice. Mr. Akin read it once and said, "This is not law. This is politics. The bank you embarrassed 5 years ago is funding Chief Okoro's campaign. They want the land." The next blow came from inside her own house. Tunde, Mr. Akin's son and a junior partner at the firm, walked into her office and closed the door. He was brilliant, ambitious, and had always envied the way clients asked for Teniola by name. He placed a file on her desk. Inside were copies of the auction documents from when she bought the house. He said, "You used confidential information from the AMCOM brief to prepare your bid. That is a conflict of interest. If I file a petition with the Legal Practitioners Disciplinary Committee, you could be suspended." Teniola felt cold. She said, "I bought that house with my own salary, 3 years of savings." He smiled and said, "Prove it in a hearing that will take 2 years. By then, the school will be gone. Or withdraw from the land case. Let Chief Okoro have the property, and I will lose this file." That night, Teniola did not sleep. She sat on the veranda while Femi patrolled with a torch. King David was inside fixing the old computers for the JSS 3 class. Bolanle coughed in her room, a deep cough that scared Teniola. The doctor had warned her 2 months earlier about early heart failure. He said, "Avoid stress." How do you avoid stress when the house you built is about to be taken? She called Mr. Akin at midnight. He listened and said, "Tenny, you have two choices. Fight them with the law and risk everything, or fight them with the people the law is meant to protect." She asked what he meant. He said, "Bring the girls to court." The hearing was fixed for Friday at the High Court in Ikeja. Chief Okoro came with 3 sons in expensive wigs. Tunde sat with them, not looking at his father. The developer's lawyer argued that the property was tainted and the school was an illegal occupant. When it was Teniola's turn, she did not open her law books. She stood and said, "My lord, I have no new case law today. I have witnesses." She opened the back doors and 147 girls in navy uniforms walked in quietly and filled the gallery. The judge stared. One by one, Teniola called them. A 13-year-old named Amaka said, "Before this school, I hawked pure water at Oshodi. Now I want to be a nurse." A 15-year-old named Zainab said, "My father wanted to marry me off at 14. Auntie Teniola's mother spoke to him. Now I am in SS2. King David, wearing a clean white shirt, testified as the computer teacher. He said, I was in prison at 17. This school gave me a second chance. I teach these girls so they never need a second chance." Then Femi was called. He walked to the witness box in his security uniform, his cap in his hands. The courtroom whispered. Teniola asked him, "Mr. Adegoke, who bought this land originally?" He said, "I did, with stolen money." She asked, "Who bought it at auction?" He said, "My daughter, with money she earned." She asked, "Why are you here?" He looked at the judge and said, "I am here to tell the truth for the first time in my life. If you take this school, you will punish children for the sins of their fathers. I have done enough of that." Chief Okoro's lawyer stood to cross-examine, but the judge raised her hand. She said, "I have heard enough." She did not give judgment that day. She said she would visit the property. On Monday morning, Justice Okafor arrived at the center, unannounced, without her robe, with only her clerk. Bolanle was in the workshop, teaching. She was pale and breathing hard, but she stood when the judge entered. The judge asked, "Mama, why did you turn your pain into a school?" Bolanle smiled and said, "My lord, I did not have a son to carry my husband's name. God gave me a daughter to carry many girls' futures. That is enough." The judge looked around at the sewing machines, at the computer lab King David built from scrap, at Femi mopping the corridor, at Eniola holding her mother's elbow to keep her steady. She nodded once. 2 days later, the ruling came. The court dismissed the revocation. It held that the property was lawfully purchased by Teniola Adegoke with traceable legitimate income, and that the public interest was best served by allowing the school to remain. The court also referred Tunde Akin to the disciplinary committee for attempted blackmail based on a recording Mr. Akin had wisely made of his son's threat. Chief Okoro lost the next election. The bank quietly withdrew its interest. That evening, the center held a small party. No DJ, just rice and chicken, cooked by Auntie Carol. The girls sang. Bolanle sat in a chair and watched, her hand over her heart. Teniola knelt beside her and said, "Mommy, rest." Bolanle shook her head and said, "I am not tired. I am complete." Later, after everyone had gone, Teniola found Femi sitting alone by the gate, his torch off. She sat beside him, something she never thought she would do. He said, "Thank you for letting me stay." She said, "You are not staying for me, you are staying for them." He nodded and said, "I wanted a son to make me proud. I got a daughter who made me better. I am sorry it took prison to see it." King David walked over with 2 bottles of water. He handed one to Femi and one to Teniola. He sat on the ground between them. For a long time, none of them spoke. 3 people who should have been enemies shared the quiet of a compound that had seen too much shouting. Inside, Bolanle's cough worsened. Teniola rushed her to the hospital that night. The doctor kept her for 3 days. On the 3rd day, Bolanle held Teniola's hand and said, "If I go, do not close the workshop. Teach them to sew straight lines and to stand straight in life." Teniola cried for the first time since she was 4. She said, "You are not going anywhere. We still have work." Bolanle lived. She came home weaker but alive. She could no longer stand for long hours, so she sat and supervised. She told stories while the girls sewed. She told them about a woman who was thrown out with a baby and a sewing machine head, and how that machine built a school. 1 year later, on the anniversary of the court's visit, the center opened a new block funded by donations from women Teniola had helped in court. They named it the Bolanle Wing. At the ribbon cutting, Teniola did not give a speech. She invited Femi to speak. He stood in his security uniform, looked at the crowd of parents and girls, and said, "I once thought a child was worthless because she was a girl. I was wrong. My daughter taught me that worth is not given at birth. It is built every day. Please help her build it for others." The crowd clapped. King David filmed it on his phone. Auntie Carol cried loudly. Mr. Akin, now retired, wiped his eyes. That night, after the lights were out, Teniola walked through the Bolanle wing alone. She stopped at a classroom where a new girl, maybe 9 years old, had fallen asleep on her desk waiting for her mother. Teniola gently woke her and walked her to the gate where Femi was waiting to lock up. The girl waved goodbye and said, "Good night, Auntie Lawyer." Teniola stood at the gate and looked up at the sign above it. Teniola Center for Girls, founded by a mother and daughter who refused to stay down. She thought about the rainy day 15 years ago, about the courtroom 5 years ago, about the hearing last year. She understood finally that the story was never about revenge. Revenge ends when the other person falls. This story would not end, because every girl who walked through that gate would carry it forward. She turned off the last light, and Femi locked the gate from the inside, the way a father should protect a home. Bolanle watched from her window upstairs, a blanket over her knees, and whispered a prayer of thanks, not for victory, but for true peace that finally felt like home after so many wandering years. Inside the compound, in the quiet, the little girl in the yellow raincoat was not memorizing pain anymore. She was listening to the sound of 147 futures breathing safely through the night. Bolanle knew she was dying the morning she could no longer thread a needle. It was a quiet Thursday, 2 years after the court saved the center. She sat in her workshop in the Bolanle wing, sunlight falling across 3 sewing machines, and her hands shook so badly the thread missed the eye 3 times. She did not curse. She did not cry. She set the needle down, looked at the young widow she was teaching, and said, "My eyes are tired today. You teach me." The widow laughed, not knowing it was goodbye. Teniola noticed first. Her mother had always hidden pain behind work. Now work could not hide it. The doctor at Luch ran tests and spoke gently. Her heart was failing, slowly but surely, the price of years of stress, of generator smoke in Mushin, of carrying a family on a back that was never meant to bend that far. He said 6 months, maybe a year, with rest. Bolanle heard him and said, "Doctor, I have rested enough in my life. Let me work." At the same time, life was pulling Teniola in a new direction. The center now had 312 girls. King David ran the computer lab and the boys' evening program he had started for former street kids. Femi, now 60, opened the gate every morning at 5 and knew every girl by name. They called him Baba Femi, and he carried their bags to class like an apology made daily. A delegation of market women and teachers came to Teniola's office one afternoon. They carried a letter with 5,000 signatures. They wanted her to run for the Lagos State House of Assembly. They said, "We need a law that stops banks from using wives' names for loans without their thumbprint and video consent. We need someone who has lived it." Teniola stared at the paper and felt fear, not excitement. Courtrooms, she understood. Politics was a different kind of court, where truth was optional. That week, the attack started. A blog funded by Chief Okoro's younger brother published a story titled "The Saint Lawyer Who Stole a House." It twisted the auction, claimed Teniola used her AMCOM position to cheat. Old photos of Femi in handcuffs resurfaced. Comment sections filled with insults. Donors called nervous. Worse, Tunde Akin came back. He had been suspended for a year by the disciplinary committee and had spent it in London. He walked into the center without an appointment, thinner, humbled. He said, "Teniola, I came to apologize, not to ask for work. My father is sick. He asks for you." Mr. Akin was in hospital in Ikeja, his lungs weak. Teniola went that night. The man who taught her law is about patience held her hand and said, "You are about to enter a room where they will try to make you become like them to survive. Do not remember why you started." She nodded, tears hot. Bolanle's condition worsened in the rainy season. She was admitted for 4 days. On the third night, Teniola slept on the floor beside her bed. Bolanle woke at 2 a.m. and whispered, "Are you afraid to run?" Teniola said, "Yes." Bolanle said, "Good. Fear keeps you honest." She reached under her pillow and brought out a small pair of old sewing scissors, the ones she had used to cut the ribbon at the center opening. She pressed them into Teniola's palm and said, "I use these to cut cloths. You use them to cut bad laws. Cut straight." King David proposed to Amaka that same week, the girl who once hawked pure water and now wanted to be a nurse. He asked Teniola for her blessing, calling her sister for the first time. She hugged him and said, "You are not your father. You are the man you chose to become." At their small engagement in the center courtyard, Femi stood at the back, clapping louder than anyone, crying openly. The political pressure grew. Chief Okoro's people offered Teniola a deal through a mutual friend. Step down, endorse their candidate, and they would fund a new hostel for the center. Refuse, and they would reopen the EFCC file against Femi for unpaid restitution and send him back to prison at his age. Teniola called a family meeting, the strangest family meeting Lagos had ever seen. Around Bolanle's hospital bed sat Teniola, King David, Amaka, Femi in his security uniform, Auntie Caro, and Mr. Akin in a wheelchair brought by his nurse. Teniola laid out the choice. Femi listened and then spoke first. He said, "Let them take me. I have lived long enough in shame. Let the school live. King David said no. We do not sacrifice our elders for buildings. Bolanle, breathing with oxygen, lifted her hand and said, we do not trade people for things. That is how we started this problem. She looked at Teniola and said, run. Not because you will win, but because those girls need to see a woman like you stand up and not be bought. If you lose, you come back here and teach. If you win, you take these sizers to that house. Teniola filed her nomination papers the next morning. The campaign was brutal. They called her an unmarried woman with no home training. They played the old video of Femi weeping in court. They said she was using her mother's illness for sympathy. On the day of the first debate, Bolanle was rushed back to hospital. Teniola almost withdrew. Femi sat with Bolanle and told Teniola, go, I will watch her. For the first time in her life, Teniola trusted her father to keep a promise. She went to the debate in a simple blue dress her mother had sewn years ago. She did not shout. She told her story in 3 minutes. She held up the small scissors. She said, my mother taught me to cut straight. Our laws are crooked. I want to straighten them for every wife whose signature is stolen, and every girl called worthless. The hall went quiet, then stood up. 3 nights later, Bolanle died in her sleep at the center. In the room above the workshop, with the sound of girls reading downstairs, Femi was holding her left hand. Teniola was holding her right. King David was reciting Psalm 23 quietly. She smiled once, squeezed Teniola's fingers, and was gone. Lagos mourned a woman most of them had never met. Market women closed shops for 2 hours. 312 girls wore black armbands sewn in the workshop. At the burial in Surulere, Mr. Akin, now very frail, gave the tribute. He said, Bolanle did not have power, money, or a husband who stayed. She had a needle, a child, and faith. That was enough to change a city. Femi did not speak at the grave. He stood by the gate afterward, greeting mourners, making sure everyone had water. That was his eulogy. Teniola wanted to quit the race. Grief sat on her chest like stone. On the 7th day after the burial, she found a letter in her mother's Bible, written in shaky handwriting. It said, my daughter, do not stop because I stopped. The machine does not stop when the tailor rests. Another hand takes it. Take the machine. She won the election by 4,000 votes. Her first bill in the House was short and clear. It required banks to obtain biometric and video consent from spouses before using the identity for any loan, and made it a criminal offense to forge such consent, with special protection for women in marriages. She called it the Bolanle Adegoke Financial Dignity Act. She laid the small scissors on the table when she presented it. Opponents laughed at first. Then market women filled the gallery every day for 3 weeks. Then girls from the center wrote letters. The bill passed. 1 year after Bolanle's death, on the anniversary, Teniola stood in the workshop at midnight. King David and Amaka were now married and expecting their first child, a girl they planned to name Bolanle. Femi was asleep in his security post, his radio playing low. Mr. Akin had passed peacefully 3 months earlier, holding his son Tunde's hand after forgiving him. Teniola threaded a needle on her mother's old machine, the same head they carried out of Surulere in the rain. Her hands did not shake. She cut a straight line through blue cloth and began to sew a small uniform for her soon-to-be niece. She thought about the long road from Mushin to the assembly, from worthless to honorable. She understood finally what her mother meant about cutting straight. It was not about revenge, it was about pattern. You measure, you mark, you cut, you sew, and you leave something behind that will outlast you. She finished the tiny dress, held it up, and whispered, we survived, Mommy. We rose, and we are still rising. Outside, Lagos hummed, indifferent and alive. Inside the center, 147 futures slept safely, and one more was on the way, waiting to wear a uniform sewn with love, in a house that was once a place of humiliation and was now, forever, a home. They named the baby Bolanle on a Tuesday, and on Wednesday someone tried to burn the school down. It was 2:17 a.m. Femi was on his rounds with his old torch when he smelled kerosene near the back fence of the center. He saw a young man in a hoodie pouring liquid against the Bolanle wing. Femi did not shout. He was 62 and slow, but he ran. He tackled the boy into the wet grass, the torch falling, the kerosene can spilling. The boy fought, knocked Femi's head against the wall, and ran. The security alarm screamed. Teniola arrived in 10 minutes, still in the same clothes she wore to the house. King David arrived with Amaka, heavily pregnant, holding her belly. The police came later and took pictures of the wet wall. They found a lighter and a folded newspaper with an article circled in red. Assemblywoman Tiniola passes law targeting banks. It was not random. It was a message. By morning, the story was everywhere. Blogs said Teniola staged it for sympathy. Chief Okoro's allies on TV said the Bolanle Act was killing businesses and angering youths. The bank lobby had filed a suit at the Supreme Court to strike down the law, claiming it was unconstitutional and discriminatory against financial institutions. Teniola stood in the burnt-smelling corridor and felt the old anger rise. The same anger she felt at 4 years old, watching her mother kneel. She wanted to fight. Instead, she turned to Femi, who sat on a bench with a bandage on his head. She said, "Daddy, thank you." He looked up, surprised she had called him that in public for the first time. He said, "I did not save much." She said, "You saved everything." Amaka went into labor that night from stress, 3 weeks early. King David drove her to Island Maternity in Teniola's official car, breaking traffic rules. Teniola followed, praying the same prayer her mother prayed for her at 4:42 a.m. A baby girl cried into the Lagos air. They named her Bolanle David Adegoke. King David held his daughter and wept. He whispered to Teniola, "I was named king because my father wanted a throne. She will be named Bolanle because we want her to have a foundation." Teniola held the baby and felt her mother's hands in her own. The Supreme Court hearing was fixed for 2 months later. The bank's lawyers were the best money could buy. They argued that the Bolanle Act violated freedom of contract and would collapse credit for families. They brought economists in suit. Teniola's team had market women, teachers, and girls from the center. Mr. Akin's son, Tunde, now humbled and working pro bono after his suspension, came to our office. He said, "Let me help you write the defense. I owe your family." Teniola looked at him for a long time and said, "You do not owe us. You owe the truth. Work for that." They prepared together. At night, Teniola went home to the center, not to her official residence. She sat with Femi at the gate, feeding baby Bolanle while Amaka rested. King David showed her how to change a diaper, laughing when she did it wrong. For the first time since her mother died, Teniola felt like she was part of a family, not just its protector. The week before the Supreme Court, disaster struck again. Femi collapsed during his morning patrol. The doctor said mild stroke, exhaustion, age. He would recover, but he could no longer work nights. He cried in his hospital bed, not from pain, but from shame. He told Teniola, "I finally became useful, and now I am useless again." Teniola held his hand, the same hand that once carried their mattress out like trash, and said, "Daddy, you have guarded this gate for 5 years. Let us guard you now." She moved him into the small room Bolanle once used above the workshop. King David and the older boys took turns on night watch. On the morning of the Supreme Court hearing, Teniola wore her mother's blue dress under her black barrister robe. She carried the small sewing scissors in her pocket. She did not bring economists. She brought 3 witnesses. First, Amaka, holding baby Bolanle. She told the justices how her husband once stole to pay her hospital bill because banks would not give a market woman a loan without her husband's signature, but would give a husband a loan with his wife's forged signature. Second, a 70-year-old widow from Mushin who showed the court a loan document from 2009 with her thumbprint, which she could not read, that took her house. Third, Femi Adegoke, walking slowly with a cane in his security uniform. The courtroom went silent. He swore on the Bible and said, "My lords, I am the reason this law exists. I forged my wife's signature because I thought she was property. I was wrong. If you strike down this law, you will tell every man like me that we were right." The Chief Justice, an older woman, listened without interrupting. Tunde delivered the closing argument, his voice clear. He said, "The Constitution protects life and dignity. What dignity is there when a woman wakes up owing millions for money she never touched? The Bolanle Act does not stop banking. It stops stealing." The court reserved judgment. That night, Teniola could not sleep. She went to the workshop and turned on her mother's old machine. She began to sew, not a uniform, but a simple white christening dress for baby Bolanle. The rhythm steadied her heart. Femi shuffled in, unable to sleep either. He sat and watched. After a while, he said, "Your mother will be proud, not because you won in court, but because you came home to sew." 2 weeks later, the Supreme Court delivered a unanimous judgment. The Bolanle Adegoke Financial Dignity Act was constitutional, necessary, and in the public interest. The court ordered the central bank to enforce biometric video consent nationwide within 6 months. The bank lobby lost. Outside the court, reporters shouted questions. Teniola did not give a speech. She lifted baby Bolanle, who was wrapped in the white dress she had sewn, and said, "This law has a name. Remember it." That evening at the center, there was no party, just jollof rice and music from an old speaker. King David danced with Amaka carefully. The girls performed a play they wrote about a woman with a sewing machine who built a school. Femi sat in his chair by the gate, his cane beside him, clapping with his good hand. Teniola stood on the veranda and looked at them all. Her father, the watchman, her brother, the teacher, her sister-in-law, the nurse-to-be, her niece, the namesake, and 300 girls who would never know what it felt like to be called worthless in their own home. She took the small scissors from her pocket and placed them in a glass box in the hallway of the Bolanle wing, with a plaque underneath that read, "Cut straight." Later, when everyone slept, she walked to her mother's grave in the small garden behind the school where Bolanle had asked to be buried. So she could hear the girls read. Teniola knelt and placed a fresh piece of blue Ankara on the earth. She whispered, "We survived, Mommy. We rose. And now we are building the ladder for others." A soft harmattan wind moved through the compound, carrying the sound of pages turning from an upstairs classroom where a girl was studying late. Teniola smiled. The story was no longer about coming back for revenge. It was about staying and making sure no one else ever had to leave. Femi Adegoke died on a Monday, holding the gate key in his hand. He was found at 5:40 a.m. by King David, slumped in his chair at the center gate, his torch still on, his cap straight, the big iron key resting in his palm like he had been about to open for the early cleaners. He was 70, and the doctor said his heart simply stopped in his sleep. No pain, no struggle, just a quiet end at his post. Teniola was in Abuja for a Senate hearing when Amaka called. She left the chamber mid-session, something she had never done, and drove 4 hours straight to Lagos without her security detail. By the time she arrived, The girls had already covered his chair with white cloth and placed his worn-out slippers underneath. They were crying, not because he was a perfect man, but because he had been their Baba Femi for 10 years. The man who walked them to the bus stop when it rained, who fixed their broken sandals, who told them stories about a daughter who became a lawyer. Ronki came back from Ghana for the burial. She was older, quieter, her bleached skin now natural again. She stood at the back in a simple black dress, holding King David's hand. She did not ask for anything. She just whispered to Teniola, "Thank you for giving my son a home when I could not." They buried Femi in the small cemetery behind the church in Surulere, not in the family plot he once boasted about, but in a modest space Teniola bought. On his headstone, at his request, written in a shaky note found in his security post, were the words, "Here lies Femi Adegoke, father of Teniola, watchman who learned late." After the burial, the house felt empty, even with 300 girls. That night, Teniola sat alone in the workshop, holding her mother's old scissors. Her phone buzzed. It was the chief of staff to the president. The president wanted to nominate her as Minister of Women Affairs and Social Development. It was the highest appointment ever offered to someone from her background. It meant moving to Abuja, leaving the center, leaving the daily work. She said she needed time. The next morning, baby Bolanle, now 10 years old, bright-eyed, with her grandmother's serious face, found her auntie in the workshop. She climbed onto the stool and asked the question children always ask when adults are quiet. "Auntie Tenny, why don't you have your own children?" Teniola smiled, threading a needle. "I have 300, she said. Bolanle frowned. "That's not the same. Mama Maka says you gave your life to the law so other women could have lives." Teniola did not answer immediately. She thought about the nights in Moshin, the courtrooms, the campaigns, the nights she chose a brief over a date. She had loved once, a journalist who left because he said he could not compete with a ghost named Bolanle. She had not tried again. King David knocked and entered. He looked tired. He said, "Sis, we need to talk about money. The grant from the state stopped last quarter. The new commissioner says the center is politically affiliated because you are in the assembly. We have 2 months of diesel left. The weight of it all pressed down. Her father dead, her mother gone, the center struggling, a nation calling." She went to her mother's grave that evening. She sat on the grass and laid the nomination letter down. "Mommy, what do I cut this time?" she whispered. She remembered something Bolanle told her the night before she died. The machine does not stop when the tailor rests. Another hand takes it. She went back and called a meeting, not of lawyers, but of the women. Auntie Caro, now 75. Amaka, now head nurse at the center clinic. Zainab, the girl once almost married off at 14, now 23, and in her final year of law school at Unilag. Mrs. Bisi, retired but sharp. And King David. Teniola stood and said, "I have been offered Abuja. If I go, they will say I abandoned you. If I stay, they will say I was afraid. I want a third way." She proposed a succession plan. She would accept the ministerial nomination on 3 conditions. 1. The center would be registered as a federal model school with independent funding. 2. Amaka would become executive director. 3. Zainab would serve as legal advisor while finishing school, and King David would chair the board. Amaka gasped. "Me? I am a nurse, not a leader." Teniola took her hand. "My mother was a tailor, not a headmistress. She led anyway." Zainab cried. King David simply nodded. He had been waiting for someone to trust him with more than computers. The president agreed to the conditions. The news shocked Lagos. Editorials called it unprecedented, a minister who refused to abandon her community project. Her confirmation hearing at the Senate was brutal. Opponents brought up the old Amcon case, her father's prison record, the fire at the school. Teniola sat calmly. When it was her turn, she did not defend herself. She placed the small sewing scissors on the table, the same ones from the glass box. She said, "Distinguished senators, my mother gave me these scissors when I was afraid. She told me to cut straight. I have used them to cut cloth for my niece, to cut ribbons for schools, and today, I hope, to cut through red tape that keeps Nigerian women poor. You can question my family. You cannot question my work." She was confirmed with a wide margin. On her last night in Surulere, before moving to Abuja, Teniola did what her mother taught her. She went to the workshop at midnight. Baby Bolanle followed her, unable to sleep. Teniola lifted the girl onto the stool and showed her how to thread a needle. The child's tongue stuck out in concentration. On the third try, the thread went through. Teniola clapped softly. "You see? Slow hand, steady eye." Bolanle looked up. "Auntie, will you forget us in Abuja?" Teniola pulled her close. "Never. I am going to Abuja so that one day every girl in Nigeria will have a center like this in her own town. And when I am tired, I will come home and you will teach me how to thread the needle." Upstairs, in the room that used to be Bolanle's, Amaka was packing Teniola's small bag. King David was oiling the gate hinges Femi used to oil. Outside, the new night watchman, a former area boy King David had mentored, locked the gate, holding the same big iron key Femi died holding. Teniola walked to her mother's grave one last time before dawn. She left the scissors there, tucked into the earth, because she no longer needed to carry them. The lesson was in her hands now. As her car pulled away from the center, 300 girls lined the fence in their uniforms, singing the school anthem they wrote themselves. Femi would have loved the noise. Teniola did not look back. She looked forward, to Abuja, to the work, to the future. In her lap was a small blue dress she had sewn for baby Bolanle, with a note pinned to it, "For the next tailor. Cut straight." The little girl in the yellow raincoat had finally stopped coming back for revenge. She was now going forward to build. The story still did not end here. Comment part 3 below.